So welcome back to another video. I was doing work on a friend's car and I thought, you know what, the YouTube will need to hear about this or see about it, or I'll show you how to do it. Now, if you've been following me for a while, you know when I was doing 0 to 60 runs in my Mk2, I made my gearbox very unhappy and broke it. Stuck in third gear, all that stuff. And what I did at the same time was I needed the certain parts that broke were the selector bits that sit inside here. I did show it in the other video, so I won't go over it again. And you can't buy those parts. You can buy like the brass synchro rings, but you can't really buy everything else. So the option was to find another box and have that rebuilt, or find another box, take it apart and use the bits out of it. So I did that. So got hold of Brendan at Dubstock, said, mate, you got a gearbox, I need a gearbox. Also, have you got a diesel gearbox? Why do I want a diesel gearbox? This is why. So, fifth gear in a 16 valve Golf. I'm just focusing on 16 valves. You can do this to pretty much any O2 rod change gearbox, or a rod change where you've got the rod straight through the gearbox for the clutch. Just thinking, yes, it doesn't matter between 8 and 16 valve. I've got a different input shaft on the gearbox, but obviously this goes off a different spline on the end. So what are these from? They're from a diesel gearbox. Diesels have different ratios because of the nature of the engine. Now, again, my car or your car, 16 valves, you're on a motorway, UK for example, you're doing 70 mile an hour. You're between 70 and 80 mile an hour, you're tickling 4,000 RPM. That is absolutely, firstly, noisy. Secondly, drinks fuel, because that's right at the point a KR is ready to let rip. So I thought, okay, well, I'll put a diesel gearbox gearing in it. So I replace what I need to, and I change the gears over. Now, this side, this is 2 gears. I'll show it closer in a minute, is what you change. So literally, you can do this without taking the gearbox out of the car, because I'm doing it on a 16 valve outside. So all you need to do, I'm not going to talk you through step by step exactly how to do it. If you're handy with the tools and you know what you're doing, it's very simple. I'll show you exactly what you need to do to the gears. I'll list all the codes of the relevant gearboxes with these ratios in the description. It is very simple. So jack the car up, get it on an axle stand on obviously the gearbox side. What you want to do is loosen and remove the gearbox bracketry, so the 2 that bolt on the top of the gearbox and go down to the gearbox mount. Get that out of the way. Then you want to jack under the engine, lift it up, undo the front engine mount, and you want to get the front engine mount completely out of the way. And then what you want to do is just lower it down just to the point of where the gearbox casing sits about an inch or so under the chassis leg. That's all you need to do. Once that's there, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, about 6 13mm nuts on the end of the gearbox. Disconnect the clutch cable, undo those nuts. Obviously you're going to need to drain the oil, or just stick a bucket under the casing when it comes apart. Pop the casing off, and that's all you need to do to get access to these gears. Now once you're in there, you have this hollow splined bolt. This is where the rod change for the clutch goes through, goes on the thrust bar, and this end of the gearbox and clutch goes through. These are mega tight. Easy way to do it is get an impact gun, select it into gear. From under the car, I just knocked it across so it's in gear, and get an impact gun on that, and it comes out nice and easy. Don't try and do it with a breaker bar or anything, because if you shear that or take the teeth off the end of that, you're going to be in a world of pain. So if you can, borrow your mate's impact gun or get one, off and it's out. Get that out of the way before you do anything else. Then I'll zoom in a minute, I'll talk you through. So this bit here is your selector fork, and there's a little locking ring. So what you need to do is knock off this locking ring so it sits and floats around, and then you want to anti-clockwise screw the thread portion you'll see in a minute until this all comes loose, and then literally pull the whole gear off. Once the nut's out, this whole lot will just pull off the shaft. I wonder how many times I'll say shaft in this video. Pull it all off, once you've done that, you then, on the 16 valves, you'll have a clip on there. Again, I'll show you in a minute. Pop that clip off and pull this gear off. That is all you need to do before you put the next ones on. Now, before I go too far, because there's something you need to do with these gears, or this gear, to get it to fit right, I'll go over to that manky old gearbox and I'll show you the case in a bit easier to take off. We'll come back over here, we'll see that you can see the difference of the gears, and I'll show you what you need to do with the smaller gear, importantly, so it can fit back on the 16 valve box. So this is what we're looking at. This is our gearbox. Obviously I've taken the end off, because like I say, if you're doing this job, undoing a couple of nuts and listening to some instructions shouldn't be beyond you. If it is, then, you know, get a mate to hand help with stuff. But here we go. Right, that's the casing that sits on the end. Obviously not on this gearbox, it sits on there. You undo 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bolts, 13 mils. Obviously they are different lengths, so put them back in there, or when you take the casing off, like I've done with the old one, the bolts still in it, I've literally undone them and lifted it off. Now this is the bracket I was on about in the car. Undo these bolts, undo that one, and get this whole bracket out the way, and then you'll lower the car down so the chassis leg is sort of sitting there, so you've got enough room to get this off. So this tooth part here, threaded part here, it turns around. Right, if you're taking this off as well, do not take this rod out. You take that rod out, that goes through all your selectors, and it will cause you, again, a world of hurt. So this bit here is what we need. Let me grab the other bit. Right, so you're going to have this sat on here. Now this part here is what threads onto here, so that sits on there like so. Once it's all sat down and threaded on, this little gadget is a locking piece, which when you knock it down, these spline bits have a slight taper on them, so it locks onto it. And when you come at the gearbox and you look at this, what you'll have is, on all the gearboxes I've seen, there is a measurement, 2.5 teeth. So you want 2 teeth proud of this, and then half a pitch below it. I'll put the measurements in the description so you actually know what the measurements are. So all you're doing is get a flathead screwdriver, wiggle this up out the way. Once that's sitting down there, get a pair of pliers, because it grips on there, and literally turn this shaft. Again, you want to turn it anti-clockwise. That will unscrew it from this threaded portion in there. Then once that's free, again, lifting the whole lot off. Now let's get onto this one, because this is the main bit. You have to actually do something with it in case of just a 1-for-1 swap. Right, so here's a close-up. So this is the 16 valve gear set, and you can see by the large gap in the teeth. Now I'm not going to get involved in going through driven gears and all that sort of stuff, because it's just confusing. If you want to read it up, brokevw website is a very good website with lots of information on there and gearbox codes and stuff. But this is the 16 valve, and this is our TDI. As you can see, smaller gears. Now what we need to do is these two. So on the gearbox, this has a ring machined round it. So when it's in the gearbox, this slides over the shaft, that's twice, like that, and then it pushes on. It's like a big clip. Well, it is a clip, and it's sprung. So that little dot there on the bottom, the raised edge, that sits in this ring and is what locks it in the shaft. Now, how do we do that with this one? Well, what you need to do is measure the distance from that little nodging, and you need to drill a little indent in the gear. Now I've used the die grinder on this because a drill bit you will struggle to actually drill into it. You can get a little drill bit just in a cordless drill, again mark where it wants to be, and then you want it so when that's all sat in there nice and flush, and then when it's in the hole you've got that space just there because these are the bits here which lock into the actual shaft. And then once that's sprung in there and sat there, it's not going anywhere. It's just like a split ring clip. So that is the one thing you need to do to fit that gear on there. Then it is literally a reverse of the other one. So put that gear on, put the clip on it, slide all that on, put the fork into there. When you drop it on, drop the whole lot on, not forgetting to put your clip inside there. So when you put it on, it's all one unit, it goes down, and then you're screwing it down until you've got, again, 2.5 threads sticking above this, and that is the ballpark of where you want to be. And there also is a measurement around here to get it in the right place. Again, I'll write that in the description just so you have a bit more information what you need. Right, so here we are with the gear selects on. Now what we need to do now is measure here to the top of the thread. So if we pan round, we've got about 2.5 threads there. And then what we need to have is 5mm from this selector fork to the top of that threaded section. So whop a ruler on there, measure approximately 5mm, and that's where we want to be. And that allows the shift rod to move it across enough to actually select gear. And what you want when it's like that, you have a little bit of leeway in or out, so when everything heats up and gets warm, nothing's going to bind up. And we've got a gear on there with the clip on it, and then once you've set the height on this, what you want to do is push that down so it sits down on there, and it'll start to get tight, and just get a flathead screwdriver and just knock it down tight. Put the nut in, bit of lock, clean it all up, bit of Loctite, torque it up, or just get the gun on it, new gasket, put it all back together. Simples. So we're asking, Martin, why do we want to do this? It is probably one of the best modifications you can do to your Mark II Golf. Now, why? Stop it. It drops the RPMs down in 5th gear close to 1,000 RPM, and that's mental. So in mine, doing about 80 mile an hour on a private road, you're looking under 3,000 RPM. Now previously on the normal gears, 80 mile an hour, you're tickling 4,000 RPM easily. It's terrible, and it makes it a completely different car. I'll put the video at the end of this video. I'll put the link for the video I went out and went to Cotswold Motor Hub when I first test drove the gearbox. And yeah, as soon as I put it in the 5th, I was like, what's it going quiet for? And then realised that's because what the 5th gear does. Now it doesn't mean that you put it in 5th and it's going to go oh and build back up again. Nothing. It makes no odds. You're in 5th gear, you put your foot down, it picks up and pulls as it should do. If you want to go faster, you drop it down a gear and go. Simple as that. So like I say, it is very simple to do. Gearboxes are cheap, so you buy a cheap gearbox, you've got spare parts if you need it. Easy to do, like I say, jack the car up, front engine mount off, support with a jack, get the transmission bracketry off, lower it back down just so the gearbox just below the chassis leg, disconnect the clutch cable, undo the 30mm bolts, crack the casing, let the oil drain out, pull the casing off, undo that nut with an impact gun. I don't recommend doing it with anything else. Once that's off, undo your tab, anti-clockwise turn the main threaded rod till it all comes loose, pull it all off, switch it all over, drill your hole in that one, put it back on, put that on first, then there, put it back down so you've got 2.5 threads on there. Double check the measurements will be written in the description. New gasket, casing back on, clutch back on, bolt it all back together, put some fresh oil in it, boom, go and enjoy it. Like I say, will you pack it in? Like I say, that gearbox is a 4S, which is off a Mark 1 Golf diesel. My gearbox was a Mark 3 Golf, early Mark 3 non-turbo diesel. So what I'll do, like I say in the description, I'll write down all the codes. Mine was a CHD, that's a 4S. I write down all the codes that are relevant to what the ratio we need. Now this ratio is 0.745. The 16 valve is 0.945, I think, don't quote me on that. But you're looking about a difference of 200 of the ratios, which makes an immense difference. A lot of people do it with the T5 vans, T4s even, dropping that 5th gear down. You can buy the gear sets for about 200 quid, or you can buy a used gearbox for 100 quid off someone decent. Like I say, I got mine from Dubstock. You've got other people you can buy them from. 5th gear is very not limited, very low risk of being damaged because it's 5th gear. Like 1st, 2nd synchros, you have problems, but 5th gear, because if you've got synchro in here, there's minimal worries about it being damaged. But if you know your gearbox is good, you can always just swap your synchro ring over, so you're all happy. Very simple mod, and it is amazing. Yeah, not much more to say about it, to be honest. Simple as that. So they have a look in the description. We'll have all the specs in there, the gearboxes, the ratios. Brokevw website, very good. Tells you how to strip all the gearboxes apart. Really good website. So that's another video. The 5th gear modification completely changes how the 695 car drives. By far the best modification I've done to it. It just opens a whole new world of possibilities, like the old Toys R Us advert. Like long drives, like, you know, NC 500 around Scotland, Brecon drives, all that sort of stuff. You get this gearing in there, you drop that 5th gear down, those cruisers are just eating the miles up, not eating the fuel. Because like I say, the KR, you're sitting at 70, 80 mile an hour, you're right in the power band. That's where the KR is ready to let rip. Yeah, so there you go. 5th gear modification, done simply. Like I say, I was going to do a step-by-step, because if you need a step-by-step, go to brokevw's website. You know, he breaks it down perfectly how to take it all apart. This is just showing you my direction on how to change it. It's such easy job to do, and cheap as well. You get a box for 100 quid, 20 quid on a gasket and some oil. Yeah, money, nothing, pennies for that, and massive gains. So there you go, 5th gear mod. I'll see you in the next one. Cheers, bye.